Hi everyone, welcome to another Islamic Studies Research Colloquium organized by Center for Islamic Studies and Civilization, Charles Sturt University. This is our final colloquium throughout this year, and this is the final one, fifth one. Thanks for joining today. Today we have two great presentations by, first of all, Professor Imtiaz Yusuf, and secondly, Omar Mohamed. Omar Mohamed is studying with us and he's doing his PhD, and he will do his confirmation seminar, and his topic is on political Islam through Muslim Brotherhood. And first of all, we will listen to Associate Professor Imtiaz Yusuf, and topic is, of course, very famous topic, Islamization of knowledge. And this topic has been discussed for decades. I remember when I was studying Bachelor of Ilahiyat, at the end of maybe in 1990, from 1997 to maybe 2002, I remember we had discussions, and Ismail Raji and Farouqi's actually book. Books and works actually were being studied and discussed, and decades topic, it has been discussed for decades. And Ismail Raji al-Farouqi and his project Islamization of Knowledge, and of course Ismail Raji al-Farouqi and his scholarship, academic study and scholarship is marvelous. When we look at his biography, I have looked at a little bit, and he studied in the West, and he knows East, he knows West. He studied in the USA, in Europe, in the West, and also he studied, he moved to Egypt to study at Azhar University for 3 years, and he has actually knowledge, scholarship both in East and West. This is, of course, a very good advantage for any scholar, and of course he attempted to engage with Western knowledge and modern knowledge, and how to engage with modern knowledge through and also maybe more merge or combine Islamic knowledge and modern knowledge. And I think a very interesting project. Of course, as I said, this has been discussed for decades. And Sayyid Hussein Nasr and Islamic science, his concept of Islamic science, and we have Naqib Attas, de-Westernization of knowledge, and Ismail Raji al-Farouqi, Islamization of knowledge, and we have International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, and Raji Farouqi and his colleagues actually initiated in 1970s, 80s, a number of projects, associations in the West, in the USA. One of them is International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization. We will, of course, we will listen to this Islamization of knowledge movement and project, and its past and relevance today. Of course, it has been discussed for decades. Maybe while Professor Yusuf will join soon, let me introduce him and also his topic. Just before, first of all, let me acknowledge the Wiradjuri, Ngunnawal, Gundungara, and Biripai peoples of Australia, who are the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which Charles Sturt University's campuses are located, and pay respect to their elders, both past and present. Professor Imtiaz Yusuf is Associate Professor and the Coordinator for the Islamization of Knowledge program, and also Islam and Buddhism program at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Dr. Yusuf is currently non-resident research fellow at the Center for Contemporary Islamic World, Shenandoah University, USA. I think this center has been recently launched, opened, and former senior fellow at the Prince Al-Walid Talal bin Center for Muslim Christian Understanding at Georgetown University. This is a very famous center in Georgetown University, Washington. He is also the former director of the Center for Buddhist Muslim Understanding in the College of Religious Studies at Mohidal University in Thailand. He specializes in the study of religion with a focus on Muslim-Buddhist relations and dialogue, Islam in Thailand and Southeast Asia. Dr. Yusuf's most recent publications are Muslims as Thailand's largest religious minority in Routledge Handbook of Islam in Southeast Asia, edited by Khairuddin Al-Junaid, Routledge University, Routledge publisher. Another work, Building Muslim-Buddhist Understanding, the Parallels of Taqwa, Allah consciousness in the Quran, and mindfulness in Anapanasati Sutta in Overcoming Orientalism. Essays in honor of John Esposito, edited by Tamara Son. Another one, Islamic Theology of Religious Pluralism, Building Islam, Buddhism Understanding in Pluralism in Islamic Context, Ethics, Politics, and Modern Challenges, edited by Mohamed Hashhash, Springer Nature publication. And Essential Writings, Ismail Al-Faruqi, edited by Imtiaz Yusuf as well, and A Muslim's Reflections on the Lotus Sutra in Buddhist Christian Studies. All right, Professor Yusuf, thanks for joining.
Could you unmute him, Hakan, because I couldn't.
Yes, all right, just a second. All right.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Professor Yusuf, it is an honor to host you in this colloquium. Thanks for joining. I was introduce you and your writings and scholarly works.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting Dr. Hakan and Dr. Zulekha, or Zulekha. Actually, I think that's what the real meaning is. And it's an honor to join your university and make this presentation. I've been to Australia only once, to Sydney, but not anywhere else. So this is a good occasion for me to join you. I just want to add to my biography, but it's a little biographical introduction to myself. Oh, by the way, first of all, sorry for joining you late. Thank you, Dr. Zulekha, for calling me, because misreading of the time on my part. Okay. I was born in Tanzania, in East Africa, of an Indian family. And then I was educated I had my early education in Tanzania. I'm a British citizen. Then I was sent to study for high school in India, and my bachelor's degree also from India, from Pune University in political science. And then I did my MA in Islamic studies from Aligarh Muslim University, the famous one founded by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. After that, I got in contact with Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi, who offered me scholarship to study with him at Temple University in the Department of Religion. And I speak 6 languages, that is English, Swahili, Hindi, Urdu, Arabic, and Thai, and a little bit of Malay. So giving you this background will give you an idea of where I'm coming from and where my perspective is. So my children call me a nomad. You see, I'm not located in one place. And I feel myself culturally very interrelated wherever I live. And I observe different societies and communities around the world. So as Dr. Hakan has told you, that I'm going to make this presentation on Islamization of knowledge. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint, and that one, I hope it laws. Okay. All right. I think you can see that.
Yes, we can see it. Yes.
Okay. I need to pull this up here just a minute. You know, this technology.
Yes.
All right. All right. Anyway, I'll push you here. Okay. So this is my topic today is the trajectory of Islamization of knowledge. Let me make it a slide presentation. Just a minute. Okay. My topic is the trajectory of Islamization of knowledge movement, its past, present, and its past and relevance today. The term Islamization of knowledge is very much current, and in a way, some people say that it is no more relevant. So there is a debate going on that issue, and I will get into that, and I'll trace the history. I hope I have enough time because I have lots of slides, but let's see if I can do it. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala khataman nabi wal mursaleen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa la tahsabanna allazina qutilu fi sabilillahi amwatum bal ahya inda rabbihim yurzakun. I read this verse from Surah Al Imran, verse 169, which says, "Don't think of those who are killed in Allah's way as dead. No, they are alive and are provided sustenance from their Lord." I refer this verse especially in reference to Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi, who is the person who coined the term Islamization of knowledge, and he was Shaheed. And he is, I will get into it a little bit into his biography at him. So I have for many years, I think I'm the only one person who works on Ismail Al-Faruqi. And to give you some background, for 26 years after his death, there was no studies or a feshrif in his honor ever published. And when I was teaching in Thailand before for 30 years, and I was always disturbed that there are so many feshrifs in honor of so many scholars, living or dead, but nothing in honor of Ismail Al-Faruqi. So I spoke with Professor John Esposito, and the people at IIIT, Dr. Jamal Al-Barzanji, and that I said that we need to do this. And Alhamdulillah, they agreed. But Professor John said, "I don't have time." I said, "Don't worry, I have the time." So I was able to publish this Islam and Knowledge, Al-Faruqi's Concept of Religion and Islamic Thought, which came out in 2010 or 12 from Ivy Torres in London. And during that time, I was a visiting professor at Georgetown University, and I had access to Professor Faruqi's whole collection. And I found a manuscript which was unpublished. So I confirmed with several other scholars, and they say they have not seen this work published. So I was able to turn that manuscript, which was lying there for 26 years. I updated it, revised it, and published it with this name, Islam, Religion, Practice, Culture, and World Order. And then I also published another special issue of the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences, which was founded by Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi. Again, nothing was done for him, and this was published in 2011. So a special issue, it was edited by me and Professor John Esposito. So in a way, we are talking about a scholar who was forgotten by his own people. And just last year, Dr. Yaqub Mirza at Shenandoah University asked me to do a volume of essential writings of Ismail Al-Faruqi. So I came up with this book last year, which has a foreword by Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim and reviewed by John Esposito. And this is as Professor Khan has already sent you the link. You can download it for free from the website, which he has shared already. Okay, so sorry, I'm jumping here. My presentation today is made up of four parts. I will introduce Ismail al-Faruqi and his scholarship, and the setting and the background, the political scenario in the post-colonial Muslim world, and the Makkah Educational Conference in 1977, from which the concept of Islamization of knowledge emerged or was born. So Islamization of knowledge was an anti-neo-colonial movement, and its contents. I will discuss that, and I'll end up with talking about the post-Faruqian withering of Islamization of knowledge program and a conclusion. So part one, Professor Faruqi was a Palestinian Islamic scholar, and he was the governor of Jalili from 1945 to 1948, and professor of Islamic studies at Temple University, excuse me, and previously at Syracuse University in the United States also. For me, he was a man of encyclopedic knowledge. Which is like a mine. His knowledge is like a mine to be researched, learned, and applied. And when I was going through the works, his writings, and I have about 50 unpublished works of Professor Baruch, which are not yet published, and the issues about that, I'm not going to go into that. So he was no ordinary scholar. His work focuses on Islam, a comprehensive view of Islam and its relation to life and culture. And he was trained as a philosopher, so he emphasizes on reason, science, progress, action, and work ethic. He combined the classical affirmation of Tawhid with the modernist interpretation and its application to modern life through exercise of intellectual jihad. I use the word jihad here because when I was drafting the Fashrift, you called him as a mujtahid. So Professor Esposito told me, no, he was a mujahid. So I was told I had to change the term. So I call him an intellectual mujahid. And he established Islamic studies programs in several parts of the world. And as I said, he was, pardon?
Sorry, Professor Yusuf, sorry for interrupting, but there is a little noise behind. Is it coming from your side?
I think, yeah, just a minute. There's some knocking, right? Knocking sound?
But if possible, if not, that's okay. But yes.
Just a minute, I need to close the door. They're knocking something around here. Okay, there's some construction going around behind me.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, all right. So he was born in Palestine in an influential religious family. He got his first degree from the American University of Beirut in 1942, and he was the registrar of cooperative societies in Jerusalem. And in 1945, he was appointed the governor of Jalili in Palestine. And give me one more minute. I need to do something here. You may edit things out later on. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay. And in 1945, he was appointed as the district governor of Jalili, Palestine. With the creation of Israel, he migrated out of Israel in 1948, first to American University of Beirut. And after that, he went to the United States and he got his first degree, a master's degree in philosophy from Indiana University. 1951, he got his second master's degree in philosophy, again from Harvard University, and a PhD in philosophy, again from Indiana University. The title was Justifying the Good, the Metaphysics, Epistemology, and Epistemology of Value. And you'll be surprised to know that he's so famous, but he was unemployed after he finished his PhD, and he had no job. So he was a renovator or refurbisher of old houses he was painting them and working as a, the handyman, doing everything, electrical repairs and all that. And that was his state of affairs. But later on, he found a job. I'll come to it. So he decided to go to Al-Azhar University and spend about 4 years to study the traditional Islamic and Islamic knowledge. In 59 to 61, he came back. He was a visiting professor at McGill University's Institute of Islamic Studies, where he studied Christianity and Judaism. So from philosophy, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. And at McGill, he met Professor Fazlur Rahman from Pakistan, the famous Fazlur Rahman, who was then teaching, and then they became friends, and they were concerned, both of them were concerned about the state of knowledge in the Muslim world and in Muslim societies. So Professor Fazlur Rahman and Professor Faruqi were invited to join the Islam Center Institute of Islamic Research in Karachi, Pakistan, by Professor I.H. Qureshi, a famous Pakistani Indian historian or a Pakistani historian. And he spent 3 years there, but he was dissatisfied at looking at the condition of the Muslim society in Pakistan, because he didn't see it working towards the upliftment of the Ummah, the purpose of the creation of Pakistan. So he saw the people are just spending their time drinking chai or shai all the time and doing nothing else. So he got upset and he left and went to the United States again. Life of a muhajir at the same time. And he became a professor, associate professor at Syracuse University, I mentioned to you earlier. After that, in 68, he joined Islamic Studies program at Department of Religion at Temple University until his death in 1986. So this is a background to him. Now, his main contributions are in the academic study of Islam and the academic study of Christianity. His approach is that of phenomenology of religion and interreligious dialogue. And though he is best known for his Islamization of Knowledge project, he was a scholar activist who studied to the contribution of Islam and global civilization. Now, I'm not going to spend much more time, but when I see at the content of his work, I find that there are 13 topics on which he worked or specialized in. Very interesting, I or myself, you would say, I only know this area or that area, but I listed these areas in which he specialized. That is Uruba, monotheistic Arabism, pre-Hijra Islam, religion and geography, Quranic exegesis or tafsir, Mu'tazila, Asharism, Ikhwan al-Safa, Islamic modernism, and reformist Salafism thought, Christian ethics, Muslim-Christian dialogue, science and traditional values in Islam, Islam and art, religious experience in Islam, Islam and culture, Islam and human rights, and meta-religion. If you asked him the question, what is his best work or his area of specialization? As a student, he told us that his best work is the book Christian Ethics and not Islamization of Knowledge. Islamization of Knowledge is a product of the crises in the Muslim educational situation at that time. So he talks about Arabia, and he says Arabian religious theater is a theater of conflict between Tawheed and Shirk, monotheism and polytheism. These two conflict between these two religious concepts are found only in Arabia. Just a minute, something here. It's found only in Arabia and not anywhere else in terms from history of religion and philosophy of religion, because the concept of Tawheed and Shirk are two religious concepts which are in conflict. If you look at Arabian theater from Mesopotamia to Palestine and to to Palestine and to Arabia, we see this conflict between Islam as Tawheed and Shirk. So this conflict cannot be applied academically to the other regions of the world or the other areas of the world, because the religious history of India, of China, of Africa, of Australia or Oceania is different. They have a different religious history. They have a different phenomenology of religion. So we cannot apply that, oh, this is Tawheed and this is Shirk. These people are kafir and these people are mushrik, because we see them doing things which do not fit the pre-Arabic understanding of Shirk and Tawheed, the conflict between Shirk and Tawheed. So for him, Muslims are monotheic people whose vision is guided by the ethical vision as rooted in the Quran and the principles of monotheism, universalism, tolerance, and life affirmation. While the polytheists are mythopoeic people of a mythopoeic mind, that is a state of mind which is not able to transcend beyond polytheism. So monotheic person is a Tawheedi person, and mythopoeic person is a mushrik or a kafir, as we see in the Arabian situation. And he also talked a lot about Din al-Fitra, or religious naturalists, which is rooted in the Quran. So for Farooqi, Tawheed as monotheistic Arabism, not in the Arabic nationalist sense of the term, is the essence of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And these three religions make up the Arab stream of being. And he called on the Muslims that we should not be satisfied with understanding of Islam with the beginning of the Quranic revelation and its end, but we need to study pre-Hijrah Islam. What happened to what was the religious situation before Hijrah, before the establishment of Islam? Our tendency is that we don't study the past of Arabia, the past of Egypt, the past of all, but we just start with this limited vision, though we say that we believe in 124,000 prophets. So Muslims need to do more work in the area of history and phenomenology of religion. So in his worldview of Islam, Islam is made up of three views. One is ideational. It highlights the Tawheedi monotheism as the core idea of Arab consciousness, in contrast to other civilizations. Second is axiological understanding of faith based in values and ethics, and piety, ethics, and world affirmation. It is not national, racial, or ideological. Because if a religion takes that kind of understanding, nationalist, racialist, ideologist, it becomes fanaticism. And the third part is aesthetical dimension of the Quranic revelation, which is evident in Arabic language, in the aesthetic expressions of Muslim literature, calligraphy, architecture, music, and painting. So for Farooqi, Islam is made up of theological and aesthetical dimensions. And that is the core of Islamic thought. Okay, let me go now direct to having said that, the second part of the political scenario in the post-colonial Muslim world and the 1977 Makkah Educational Conference. Islamization of knowledge emerged as an anti-neo-colonialist educational movement. And it tried to address the dilemmas faced by Muslims in the post-colonial societies. Muslims had become independent, but they were facing lots of challenges after independence. And it was also the era of the Cold War. The people of my generation here would remember that it was the Woodstock generation. It was the Woodstock era, hippie era, at all those things were going on. And the Muslims were facing the challenges of the capitalist project, which is discussed by Daniel Lerner in his book, The Passing of Traditional Society, Modernizing Middle East. The West always wanted to modernize Middle East, means to make it a replica of Europe or the West, excuse me, and change the lifestyles of the Muslims. And so they made up a classification of a Muslim as a traditional, transitional, or modern. The other challenge facing the Muslim world at that time, after the independence, was the rise of the socialist project, rise of Arab socialism, the Socialist Party, Ba'ath Party, the idea of Al-Ba'ath Party of Michel Aflaq, who was an Arab Christian from Lebanon, Nasser in Egypt, Hafiz al-Assad in Syria. Now Bashar al-Assad, his son, is still surviving Ba'athist in power. Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. So this was the second challenge. Other challenges, as I mentioned, was the Cold War between the USA and USSR. Then the tribal monarchies or the oil-rich Gulf countries. Now we have the World Cup going on in Qatar. They spent about $20 billion to build the stadium or the football. But these are tribal monarchies. They were, because of their being oil-rich, and there were lines in the sand, the book by John Bray, Lines in the Sand, which actually these are not countries, these are just tribal kingdoms. And then also the rise of nationalist ethnicities as religious identities. Nationalist ethnicities as religious identities, or ethnic nationalism and Islam, which we see in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia, Kashmir, Palestine, Kurdistan, Turkey, whatever you have. So Muslims are identifying themselves as through their ethnic identity. These are the challenges which are connected with the challenge of Islamization of knowledge. Also, the challenge of the rise of Islamic revolution in Iran, the ideology, the political theology of Wilayat Faqih by Ayatollah Khomeini. The Islamic movements, clash between the Islamic movements and the secularist or the militarist project, that is between Ikhwan al-Muslimun in the Middle East, Jamaat Islami in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India, and Hamas and the Islamic resistance movement in Palestine. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are many challenges before we talk about Islamization of knowledge. And in Turkey, you have the clash between the Islamist movement and the secularist military project of following Kemal Atatürk. And you already know the biography and the political biography of Necmettin Erbakan. I'm not going to read all that. I'll just say the ideology of Milli Gurus and the AK Party, which is in power now, and also the Gulen Hizmet movement. So all these issues are part of this debate on the state of education in the Muslims where we are. And today we are the largest group of refugees, internally displaced people around the world. And it is within this that the Makkah Conference was called upon in 1977, which was attended by 350 Muslim scholars. And it focused on these issues: crisis in Muslim education, how to overcome Muslim illiteracy, bifurcation of religious and modern education, curriculum reform, training of teachers, and producing of new textbooks based on the Islamic worldview and new pedagogy. So out of the Makkah Conference, they published 6 books, which are already there. If you go and look for them, I've just listed them here. Naqib al-Attas's book on aims and objectives of Islamic education, Baruch and Nassif's work on social and natural social sciences, Afendi's work on curriculum, teacher education, Sayyid Sajjad Hussain, crisis in Muslim education, Sayyid Hussain Nas, philosophy, literature, fine arts, and Wasiullah Khan, education and society. So and out of this comes out the Islamization of knowledge program. So the aim of education was in the Makkah Conference, it was decided, was to develop a balanced person with a holistic understanding of the spiritual, intellectual, and experiential or rational dimension of life, rooted in taqwa, God consciousness, and the spirit of good, of attaining good and perfection. And this led to the initiation of the Islamization of Knowledge project as an epistemological undertaking to develop Islamic scholarship, leading to the reconstruction of the Islamic world for the modern age. It focuses on two types of issues. Islamization of knowledge is not reinventing the wheel. We should be very clear. It is not trying to start from the scratch, because the wheel has already been invented. Like today, we have the wheel of the Boeing airplanes, you know. So the Islamization of knowledge project is to work upon what is already invented and make it better and of benefit for humanity, and to form good human beings. And it is to be based in approaching knowledge in two ways: the revealed knowledge and the acquired knowledge, or the empirical knowledge. I'll not go into the details here. And the purpose of, so out of the Makkah Conference, the OIC decided to sponsor several universities and institutes which came out of the Makkah Conference. So you have the World Center for Islamic Education at Makkah, and the Islamic Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or ISISCO, at Rabat, International Institute of Islamic Thought, or IIIT, established in 1981, led by Ismail al-Faruqi, who wrote the work plan for the Islamization of Knowledge and produced the Journal of the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences, and also established two associations: the Association of Muslim Social Scientists in 1972, and Association of Muslim Scientists and Engineers in 1969. It also led to the establishment of the place where I work now. You see the building behind me, my background, the Institute of International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization here in Kuala Lumpur, led by Professor Sayyid Naqib Al-Attas. Now it is working. It started off as an independent institute, but now is integrated into the International Islamic University because of the Malaysian politics. Anwar Ibrahim was a very important person in the establishment of the International Islamic University of Malaysia, as well as the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization. Also, it led to the founding of the Islamic Academy of Cambridge, led by Professor Sayyid Ali Ashraf. He was there at the Makkah Conference, and he produced a journal called Muslim Quarterly, while here we produce a journal called Ash-Shajara. And later on, also other international Islamic universities in Islamabad, Kuala Lumpur, in Kampala, Niger, and they are dependent on the financial support from OIC or an IDB. So in a way, only two institutes are really working today. The IIUM, or International Islamic University of Malaysia, which is well-financed and well-administered, and the International Islamic University of Islamabad, which is dependent on Saudi Arabian finances. So this is how the things are where we are today. Let me go to the Islamization of Knowledge program here and its contents. So I call it as a brainchild of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi as a response to addressing the educational crisis facing the Muslim world and engaging in intellectual and practical engagement with modernity. And it offered a work plan and for alleviating the educational crisis, as I said. And this work plan, which he designed, was very detailed and very hard, it demanded a lot of hard work, because he, as his student, he always said that we are far behind and we have to learn a lot and read a lot and learn a lot and research a lot. before we can claim that we have achieved what Franz Rosenthal talked about Islam as a religion of knowledge. Franz Rosenthal has written a book, Knowledge Triumphant. So to achieve that status, we have to work hard. But some parts of that work plan were removed because some scholars or some of the academics thought, oh, it is too much to do. Okay. So Faruqi established the IIIT in Herndon, Pennsylvania, and I was one among the first 3 persons to receive the scholarship from Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. It was me, and there was a Turkish brother by the name of Bekir Aksoy. You may have heard his name. He was close with the Gulen movement, and the objectives of through Islamization of Knowledge project. After Faruqi's passing away, IIIT has changed its direction and gone into different direction. So I have a document where IIIT says that we are no more talking about Islamization of knowledge. We have abandoned it. We are in integration of knowledge and Maqasid al-Sharia. So talking about it, it's interesting that today, 36 years after the death of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi, we are still discussing his project, while the institute which he founded is not on that direction, not in the area of Islamization of knowledge. Okay, I need to go back 1 minute. I need to go back to that slide. What happened after Faruqi is that IIIT went into the area of Maqasid al-Sharia because it was led by Professor Taha Jabir al-Alwani, and now it is going in integration of knowledge approach. So the work plan which Faruqi had published in his book is that to master the modern disciplines. What are the objectives? Master the modern discipline. We should know all the social sciences, natural sciences, and we should know them at their state of art of knowledge. Master the Islamic legacy. Establish the relevance of Islam in the area of modern knowledge. Seek creative synthesis between legacy and modern knowledge. Mind you, I'm not using Western knowledge. I'm using the term modern knowledge. Launch Islamic thought which leads to fulfillment of Allah's plan, divine patterns of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the 5 objectives of Islamization of knowledge, data and theories. What is happening is that in terms of Islamization of knowledge is rebutting the Western approach to social sciences, where we are only the data, while they are the producers of theories. What happens is the Western scholars, anthropologists, sociologists, whatever you have, even in sciences, they come to the Muslim countries, collect the data, go back, and tomorrow produce a book. And become famous, They become famous in that way. But we are just giving the data. Like you may have noticed, many of us, especially I see in Indonesia, they are so much studying in anthropology. So they are doing the job which is the colonialist job. So the colonialist legacy is still there. There is another sound coming. I need to stop for a minute, if you don't mind. I need to close another.
No problem. That's okay.
That's okay? Okay. So as I said, it was, I don't know why there's so much sound behind today. Islamization of knowledge advocated adoption of Islamic worldview as a practical engagement with Western modernity and educational reform in the Muslim world. Professor Faruqi mentioned that we are de-Islamized, we are secularized, we are Westernized, and that's why the Ummah is sick. So we need to distinguish between data and theory. I already mentioned that. So it is easy to borrow, criticize, and talk about the conspiracies, but hard to develop alternative, sound, and scientific theories. we need to do hard work. I read the highlights here. So, and this can be done with all Muslim thinkers, educators coming together in the movement which is called Islamization of Knowledge. While the project of Islamization of knowledge began in the post-colonial era, it continues to face new theoretical and methodological issues today in the 21st century. So it is a continuing and a dynamic process. It has to be. But as I said, it has been tinkered and it has been changed as time went along. Excuse me. So today we are facing the challenge of postmodernism, artificial intelligence, pandemic, climate change. So there is a need to engage with these new and future challenges which are going to come and facing the Muslims and Muslims living either in the Muslim world or those who are living in the West, including Australia, which is considered as the West. So there are all these challenges. So it has to be a collective project. So let me go to the post-Baruchian with the question. Is it still alive or is it dead? Or what is the state of Islamization of knowledge? As I said, it has undergone many changes due to internal and external factors. So after the death of Baruchi, as I said, IIIT has abandoned Islamization of knowledge. They went into the area of fiqh al-akhliyat because of Dr. Taha Jabir al-Alwani. He was talking about the rights Muslim jurisprudence for minorities, as if Muslims were never minorities before. So it was a question, it is a Western question, Muslim in the Western space, in Europe, in North America, and Australia. So, and talking about Islamic law for minorities as citizens in the West. The second issue which happened after Professor Baruchi is that IIIT went into the area of Maqasid al-Sharia. My basic question would be, why not talk about Sharia instead of Maqasid? Sharia is more fundamental and foundational than Maqasid. Maqasid is an output of the Sharia, So everybody is talking about Maqasid al-Sharia, higher objectives of Sharia. It's a catchword these days, you know, everybody who identifies with themselves. But nobody asks the question, why did this change take place? It happened after 9/11. After 9/11, the American government asked the Muslims in America, you as citizens of America, are you loyal citizens of the United States or not? This is the question also in Australia. This is the question in Canada. This is the question in Europe, wherever there is Islamophobia, because they see Muslims as exception to the generalization. So they ask, are you a loyal citizen of Australia, New Zealand, or England, or whatever? So the whole discussion on Maqasid al-Sharia came out to say, or to legitimize, to say that yes, we are the citizens of the United States and Europe, of the Western countries, but we are at the same time Muslims, and there is no clash between citizenship and Islam, citizenship of non-Muslim countries and Islam. Basically saying that the division between Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam doesn't exist anymore. So that is why the Maqasid al-Sharia approach emerged. But now IIIT, as I said, has replaced its project called Integration of Knowledge, and it is based on the approach founded by Dr. Ziauddin Sardar. They have changed the name of the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences to American Journal of Islam and Society. And from 2000 onwards, American Association of Social Scientists has been replaced under a new name, which is under another administration, North American Association of Islamic and Muslim Studies. So all these developments have taken place. So here I show you the American Journal of Islamic Social Science, replaced by AJIS, American Journal of Islam and Society, and which is now called also, and an association was changed to North American Association of Islam and Muslim Societies. So this change has taken place. Now, going back, I'm critical of Ziauddin Sardar, and he knows about it very well. Because Ziauddin Sardar claims that Islamization of knowledge, IOK, is the westernization of knowledge and Muslims, or imbibing Muslims to become westernized. While Faruqi's position is, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And I agree with him, because when Sayyidina Umar went to Persia and he saw that the Persians had a very good system of administration, he did not dismantle the whole thing or says, okay, we are going to start from the scratch, from the first step to rebuild an Islamic administration there. No, wherever the Muslims went, Muslims took up the Greek knowledge, Greek philosophy, the Indian mathematics, whatever you have from every other civilization, from the Chinese civilization, from the African civilization, and built on it and never abandoned. So Islam is a tradition which continues what humanity contributes, and also it itself, Muslims also contribute to that, but with an Islamic perspective. So this is the difference between the two positions. So Sardar critiques Islamization of knowledge as a corpus of eliminating, amending, reinterpreting, adapting its components as a worldview of Islam. Means the Western worldview, the Western view as a worldview of Islam and its values. He says that there is lack of awareness about how knowledge is produced in contemporary society. This is a very hard statement against Faruqi. Baruch was a much deep scholar, much deep-rooted scholar and academic. How disciplines have evolved, as if Baruch did not know about all that, and function they perform about the relationship between knowledge and worldview. I'm quoting this from the book of Ziauddin Sardar, published by IIIT in 2018, from Islamization of knowledge to integration of knowledge. So he says we need to have a new paradigm rooted in Quranic worldview, which pays attention to diversity and plurality of societies, as well as new technology and innovations that are transforming the world. He goes on by saying that we need to reform the existing disciplines, invent new disciplines, new disciplines. I ask, who's going to do that? Are you going to do that? One person? Instead of creating divisions of higher education, we should recognize plurality and diversity. And in this modern networked world, replace the old approach to knowledge with creative understanding of reality. I'm quoting Ziauddin Sardar here. An approach of moderation, balance, and effective communication as underlying philosophy. So for Sardar, he's talking about holistic education, holistic universities, create new paradigm of knowledge, go beyond the existing paradigm. He says, I propose to build a network of discourse community where we build upon from ground upwards and a network community. Because we have lost rationalist approach to knowledge. We need to begin, as I said, reopen new questions in Ilm al-Kalam. Number two, deconstruct, he's taking this from Derrida, deconstruct the definition of power of modern knowledge. And we should have integration of knowledge means an inclusive and human approach to knowledge based in Islamic tradition. We should see our heritage as sophisticated diversity. We need to see the Muslim civilization as human civilization to produce coherent and integrated picture of our legacy. Be cognizant of trends in knowledge creation and futurist orientation. We should be futurist in orientation. And the fourth point, he says, we need to do meaningful work of reform. And this can only be done with eye to the future. So he talks about building a holistic university, which will instill critical thinking, new imagination, taking of risk, struggle for justice, search for deeper meaning. And teachers should not only be a muallim, but also a murabbi, a nurturer of souls and developer of character. So I asked the question to Ziauddin Sadar, where's the beef? This famous American advertisement, which was made by Wendy's. You have, my question is, where is the beef? You mentioned all this, but you don't have a work plan. You don't have the general principles of the integration of knowledge, which Farooqi has developed and made the work plan, which I showed to you earlier. So for me, it is just a rhetoric of plurality, diversity, network community, futurist studies, alternative paradigms of knowledge, a lot of words. So where's the beef? Again, my question is, where's the beef? You have a big piece of bread, but a small piece of beef burger. So this, I'm being critical here because I'm talking about whether Islamization of knowledge is still relevant or it is no more. Okay, so this is my conclusion. I'm coming to my conclusion here. Professor Farooqi and his wife were unfortunately murdered during the month of Ramadan. That was his last student assistant. And in 1986, before I was going for my holidays, he called me and he said, oh, you're going for a holiday? I always used to go for a holiday to Thailand. But at that time, he called me and he said, I have a nice holiday and please, when you come back, we'll meet again. And incidentally, after 15 days, he was murdered. That came as, and I said, oh my God, he has never called me before, ever, whenever I left. But in that year, he called me and said, by like saying farewell, goodbye to me. So Farooqi never said that Islam is opposed to modern science and technology, and that it does not want to make modern paradigm. What mattered is that it should be axiologically sound in terms of values in the area of ethics, aesthetics, and religion, which impact our daily life. Now, Islamization of knowledge is still relevant, in my view, because it is basically talking about human being as Khalifa fil Ard. We are having this pandemic today. That's why we are in this state. Otherwise, we would be meeting face to face. And we also have the challenge of climate crisis. The conference we just ended in Egypt on climate change. So for Farooqi was the pioneer of Islamization of knowledge. And he would have, if he was alive here today, he would tell the Muslims that we cannot be unmindful of the changes which have taken place around us. I believe that mere ethical, now this is me, I say that mere ethical or jurisprudential response to challenges is not enough. There is a need to do hard work and do advanced research as the ground plan project of Islamization of knowledge to offer an Islamic worldview fit for our age. And this is our challenge. So for me, Islamization of knowledge is not dead. It still lives. The spirit is alive. Recently there was a Turkish student. She's doing her research on Islamization of knowledge. And she came to Malaysia and interviewed many people. So for Farooqi, Islam was is a religion and a worldview and an integral part of knowledge and not engaging in apologetics or apologizing for Islam, but approaching Islam as a religious stream of being in non-nationalist terms. And Islamization of knowledge is as an ongoing venture, which has to address the new epistemological and ontological understanding of the Islamic worldview. Because today we are living with the ontology of violence. Our ontology is of violence. And our epistemology is in crisis. We have big challenges. So these are the issues. So the challenges of today, which we are facing, is postmodernism, gender equity, decoloniality. These are all challenges which Islamization of knowledge has to address. Post-Christian world. Europe and the West is no more Christian anymore. Christianity is just Christian ethics. The expansion of Israel, pushing the Palestinians out of their homeland, young Muslims converting out of Islam. Many young Muslims, even in Turkey, I heard just last night, are going towards deism. You're familiar with them. You know, they don't want Islam anymore because it is tied with politics and politicization. They are upset what is going on in Iran. People are living, young generations are living Islam. The burning of the hijab, and the football team not singing the national anthem in the World Cup. All these are indicators which tell us that Islamization of knowledge is needed. There is Western and Asian forms of Islamophobia. The Western, we talk a lot about Islamophobia in the Western term, but what Asian Islamophobia? What is happening in India, in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, in other countries where Muslims are being persecuted, are being told that you are not local. We are facing the challenge of the pandemic. Muslims are, and we are, as I said before, that we are the largest group of refugees in the world. Many of them are dying. You know about them, fleeing from Syria to Turkey, and the baby dying on the coast of Turkish coast, or being rejected or sent back from Italy or any European country. And then conversion of Islamization of knowledge movement into ideology. What has happened with Islamization of knowledge, in my view, is that it has been turned into an ideology. Actually, that is not the purpose. Once it becomes ideology, because ideology is false consciousness. You live in a state of false consciousness. This is Karl Meinheit. And rise of Muslim extremism. Both Muslims and non-Muslims minorities are feeling insecure about each other. They think, Muslim minorities think that they will be attacked, and they are being attacked. And non-Muslims living in Muslim countries are also being attacked. So you see, what I'm saying is that Islamization of knowledge has to address so many sociological issues, cultural issues, and several others. There is the emergence of the second and the third Western generation Muslims in Australia, in Europe, American Muslims. Your children, like Haqqan, your children and your grandchildren, they will be Western Muslims. And we need to address this issue. And also neo-colonization. And the most important, and I'm going to end here, is that today we are living in a world which is computer-controlled algorithmic codes. Computer-controlled algorithmic codes. It is the people who control the internet, tell us how to think, what to eat, how to live. So Islamization of knowledge has to go on. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Yusuf. I think it was a great, fascinating presentation and insights, and a very great summary, actually, of this movement from its beginning until today, from beginning to today's times. And Ismail Raji Faruqi and his life, intellectual biography, and his scholarship, and your scholarship, and also development of this Islamization of religious Islamization of knowledge movement throughout history for decades. As I said, I remember this project has been discussed for decades, actually, from 1970s, 80s. All right, because of time, because we will have another presentation, PhD information seminar. If you have any questions, maybe just 5 to 10 minutes, then after that we will continue with the second presenter. All right, we have questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will allow you to speak, or maybe you can type on chat box. Professor Yusuf, there are 2 questions on chat box.
Yeah.
First one, yeah, please.
I can read them. The first question is by Gary Dargan. He's an Australian living in Malaysia. He just did his PhD here at ISTEC. The question, are you loyal citizen, was not a question. It was an accusation. I agree with you, Gary. You put it very frankly, more than I did. I was trying to be academic on that one. And it was intended to divide the world into us and them. And you are right. So you have answered the question yourself, that it was an accusation. That's why the Muslim responded in an apologetic manner that our Sharia says, yes, you can be a citizen of a non-Muslim country. Okay. Can you, the second question by Muri Hassan, can you please differentiate the methodological nuances between Islamization and integration of knowledge? And this is the question I'm struggling with. Integration of knowledge does not have the beef. It does not have the work plan, the principles and the work plan. It is only says, we have, as I mentioned, we have these challenges, this challenge, we need new disciplines, we need to have a new approach, we have to have futurist approach, but it does not have a methodology. It does not offer a methodological approach to knowledge, how Muslims should approach knowledge. While Islamization of knowledge has a work plan, and to know the knowledge, Islamization of knowledge work plan methodology is, I had mentioned already, is to go deep into the past and present and future and look into it. Now, in the Islamization of knowledge of methodological approach is to do hard work, hard research, and inquire and question the present state of knowledge, present approaches to knowledge. So because they are located in certain philosophical approach. So we need our own philosophical approach to knowledge. Only then the methodology will help us to produce theories, which unfortunately we are not doing that. So this was the issue which Farooqi wrote out the work plan of how to approach. So when we are talking about Islamization of knowledge, I request the questioner to read the 1982 edition of the book of Islamization of Knowledge by Ismail al-Farooqi, because the later editions are corrupted editions. They are changed by people who came afterwards. They changed and revised a lot of things. Unfortunately, we as Muslims, we don't respect, what is published as original should be kept as it is. So that is the other thing. The question here by our friend, our student here, what are the major differences between Raji al-Farooqi's Islamization of knowledge and Naqib al-Attas and Kamal Hassan? Okay, well, Farooqi was a philosopher. Let me say first thing. As a philosopher, his view was very panoramic. It was very global view of approach to knowledge, Brother Asad. While Naqib al-Attas focuses, he's also Islamization of knowledge, but he is a mystic. He focuses and lays emphasis on Sufism. If you look at his book, Islam and Secularism, there's only one chapter, Islamization of the Malay world. You are hearing with me, you're walking, and I hope you are listening. Only Sufism, the approach is Sufism and Adab, but he doesn't offer a whole project. And in fact, he accuses Farooqi of stealing and all that. I don't want to go into that issue. If Farooqi stole, then he should have written a similar kind of a book in reaction to Farooqi. Now, Kamal Hassan was there always in the project of Islamization of knowledge. Since the beginning, he attended the conferences when he was a young person. He joined the conference in Makkah, he joined the conference in Islamabad. But what he did, he only changed the word from Islamization to Islamicization. Just semantics. Yeah. What more? My question is, what is Islamicization? He says Islamization of knowledge means you are converting people. That's only the thing he says. It means conversion of people, converting others to Islam. That was not the intention of Farooqi at all. I need to say this. John Esposito is the first student who did his PhD with Farooqi. I'll be very brief here. And he remains a Christian until today. As Esposito finished his PhD defense, Faruqi took him to a dinner, and Esposito asked Faruqi, why you never asked me to become a Muslim? I studied with you for 5 years. He says, that is not my job. But if you become Muslim, alhamdulillah, well and good. But as an academic, it is not my job to convert you to Islam. I think that is the right approach to knowledge. So Faruqi's approach is different. So you may change the word, but what do you offer? My question again is, where is the beef? My question is, where is the beef? Okay, the third question about Muhammad Zaki. Can we look at Islamization as a part of decolonial project? Yeah, very good. Actually, I'm thinking about that too. But since it emerged in the period of neo-colonialism, it can be extended into decolonial discourse. I agree with you on that one. And if you can take on that one, I will be very happy that the young generation continues, because today we are talking about decoloniality, decolonization, and there are many scholars, people like Ngugi wa Thiong'o from Kenya, doesn't write in English anymore, though he's an English novelist. He writes in his own Kikuyu language, all right? Or I would write in Swahili language. So yes, it can be located within the decolonial discourse. Gary Dargan, Faruqi is right about the need to master knowledge. Attempts to Islamize science leaves a lot to be desired. You're right. People don't understand science, but there's a problem. Lack of understanding or depth of Islamic scholarship beyond the literary interpretation. I agree with you, Gary. You're saying the very right. That's where the institutes like ISTEC are important. You cannot know where you are going unless you know where you have been. Yes. See, Faruqi made us study the whole religious texts from ancient Near East, from the Hittites, from Mesopotamia and all that. And he said, if you don't know that, you will not know what Islam is. Islam as the finality of the religious tradition and civilization. You are very right. Okay.
Right.
I think that's all.
Professor Yusuf, first our director, Professor Mehmet Özalp, then another sociologist in Western Sydney University, Dr. Can Ali. They wanna provide some comments or question. Yes, please. First, Professor Mehmet, then after that, Can. Please, Professor Can.
You need to unmute him.
Just a second.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that interesting presentation. It was very informative. My question is, given that Faruqi has written these concepts post-World War II era and the world has moved on, does his proposals, the beef that he proposed, does it need modification at all, in your view?
Yeah, it needs modification. It needs revision, a continuation as a legacy, as a tradition. But unfortunately, I'm happy you people in Australia are asking me to talk on this. I was so surprised that it needs to be modified. It needs to be reevaluated. And on Sunday, I gave another presentation, which it was an invitation from an institute in France. They asked me to talk about Islamization of knowledge. And before that, I was asked to talk about Islamization of knowledge by some other institute. So yes, the beef needs to be made bigger, right? Because the problems have become bigger and the problems have become expanded. So the size of the beef burger has to be expanded. Australians have to contribute in their way, and it needs to be modified.
Thank you very much. Just one thing that I think, so that I don't misunderstand you, when we say Islamization of knowledge from Faruqi's perspective, what really needs to be Islamicized?
Okay, what he said, his position coming from philosophical perspective is that contemporary epistemology is based on Western philosophy, Enlightenment philosophy.
Okay.
It does not have the Islamic, for example, when I was young and where you were young, when I was young, I would go to bookshops and I was studying political science and I would first go and look at the index of the books and look for the word Islam. It was never there. So Islam did not have its place in the world of knowledge.
Okay, I understand, the epistemology needs to be Islamicized. That's great. Anything else? Needs to be
and its impact for our daily living, its impact on our life and thought, not only ours, but the world. Because of the crisis, and we have seen what this crisis has led to. It has led to climate change and crisis, and the crisis of pandemic. So where is the Islamic answer? Have we produced the vaccine? 57 Muslim countries. Yes, the Turkish scientist who lives in Germany has produced, but he did not produce in Turkey. So are we contributing to the world of knowledge? This is
so basically you're saying that the Muslim world, Muslims should looking at it from a Islamicized epistemology to the world, to science or anything, and then produce answers to global problems, social issues, or whatever, scientific things from that perspective, and be at the forefront of knowledge generation.
Yes, and not be in the nostalgia of Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, Al-Ghazali.
Okay.
That time is over. That era is over.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Mehmet, and lovely. Thank you. And Jan Ali, let's just final one. And just keep in mind, this is recorded and it will be available on our website, and I will share it through various channels such as Sociology of Islam email group. It will be available. Yes. Ustaz Jan, Professor Jan, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Imtiaz Yusuf, for your interesting presentation. I suppose I have got a comment as well as a question. Sorry about the complication. I see Islam and Muslims, so we could use the term interchangeably, Islam and Muslims in crisis. And would you say that the crisis of Islam or crisis of Muslim is the result of the absence, if you like, or lack of implementation of the Islamization of knowledge?
Please tell me the last sentence again.
The crisis of Islam, is it the result of the absence or lack of implementation of Islamization of knowledge?
That's true. Yeah, because it was it was abandoned after Faruqi, and we are even in more deeper crisis than we were before during the neo-colonial, post-colonial era. So yes, it is the lack of our presence in the world of knowledge. We don't even figure, our universities don't even figure among the top universities in the world. Yeah, our universities from our countries do figure, but those are secular universities, like Marmara University or another university here in Malaysia, but not the universities which have the Islamization project. So it is the lack. It is the lack, and it is the lack of not trying to do, of not doing hard work and reducing Islam to just ritualism. Islam is just ritualism. You do the five practices and you are a Muslim. No, these are the gateways to the entrance into the approach to knowledge as ibadah, worship, knowledge as worship, and that is not there. I think I answered your question.
So the next question was, sorry. So yeah. I see this phenomenon, which I would like to describe as the crisis of Muslim intellectualism. So contemporary crisis of Muslim intellectualism is that, you would say, is because of the lack of Islamization of knowledge, that we are not actually, Muslims are not actually utilizing Islamic sources to resolve the social, economic, and political problems, which we know in modernity or modernity finds difficulties addressing itself?
Yeah, I would say that they're not being creative. They're not being critical and creative at the same time. They're not being critical and creative at the same time. That's why we are in crisis. And this crisis is an all-rounded crisis. We are besieged, not only politically, but in the terms of understanding the world. That's why I mentioned that our younger generations are now are living Islam, because they are frustrated with the politicization of Islam and turning of knowledge into ideological confrontation. And that's what has led us to crisis. Even climate crisis, we are the largest people who are not caring for the climate issues. You know very well the state of, we have the high rate of child labor in Pakistan, high level of illiteracy in Muslim countries, because we are not addressing these issues. There's a corruption in the Muslim countries, and it's an all-rounded issue. And for us, our generation my generation is just passing out. So yes, I agree with you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I see a question here. There are 3 questions. I'll take them very quickly. By Ishrat, she's my student here. Yes, I'm critical of Maqasid the Sharia project. I don't think it, because you see, I think Sharia is important, not the Maqasid, because the Maqasid the Sharia is a legal theory. Okay, is a legal theory which was established by Ash-Shatibi 300 years after the death of the Prophet, but is a current word these days, Ishra. And I told the reason why, and Gary also said, because it was an accusation that you Muslims are exception to the world. They want to see a world without Islam. So we said, oh, our Maqasid al-Sharia is that we can be the citizens of the world. But don't you think it is required to transcend? I think not. That yes, it is. We have to get over it. But this very literalist, you are answering your question yourself. The literalist and the legalist understanding of traditional Islam has led to the talk about Maqasid, Sister Ishra. That is the problem. I believe we have our approach to Islam is very legalistic. We have become like the Jews, like in Surah Baqarah, the 2nd chapter of the Quran. The Jews were, when Allah asked them to sacrifice a cow, so they asked, is it a yellow cow, blue cow, young cow, old cow, so that kind of issue, hair-splitting issues. This is legalism, and this legalism has led to Sharia, to Maqasid al-Sharia. I say talk about Islam. I mean, what about with Baruch as a worldview, So that's my answer to you. I see it as an impediment. Zaki, yes, ideologization of knowledge. Yeah, you're right. I'm very Islamization has become ideology, which was not intended at all by Faruqi at all. Professor Dr. Wong Ki Lam, thank you very much for an informative lecture. I agree. Yeah, it should be Islamization of knowledge should be dynamic and progressive. The issue is how to make this possible for all disciplines, not just talks. Again, I am doing it in my field. I am in the field of phenomenology and history of religion and Muslim Buddhist studies, which I think I'm one of the rare person doing that. I am doing it in my field, and you need to do in your discipline. Everyone needs to do in whatever discipline or profession they are working, even profession they are working. The Muri Hassan is again asking the question. I think I've heard her before, met her before somewhere on a Zoom. Want the preservation of intellect within the Maqasid al-Sharia address your thesis? I don't think Maqasid al-Sharia is talking about preservation of the intellect. it is, as I said, it is more of an apologetic approach, saying, and it is a very narrowistic, legalistic understanding of Islam. Islam is more than fiqh. Islam is more than fiqh. Maqasid is fiqh. Maqasid, the Sharia is fiqh. While Sharia are only the principles. Yes, it can be preservation of intellect, but it should not be the only overall objective of Islamization of knowledge. We should not be just stuck with maqasid. Maybe after a few years, someone will come up with a new word. You know, maqasid will be replaced by something else. So we should not get on into this semantics or semiotics of language. Was Islamization of knowledge expected to be implemented outside of the Muslim world? Unfortunately, not at that time. At that time, the migration, it was 60s and 70s, the migration to the Western world, outside the Muslim world, was very meager, but it started. In America, at that time, the Muslims in America were hardly 1 million when it started in 1977. But today, we have large populations of the Muslims who are living outside the Muslim world. Yes, they need to relook at the whole project and apply it to their situation wherever they are in the Western world, down under or wherever. Okay, and yes, it can be applied, because today the Muslims who are living outside are being questioned about their approach to knowledge. For example, in France, very big issue, Islam and laicite, Islam and secularism. What is the relation? You know, Niyazi Barkas, you have heard his name, the great Turkish sociologist, you know, totally secularized, or Mohamed Arkoun. Those scholars who were outside, they took up the project of what Derrida, Foucault, Paul Ricoeur, and you know, they just took it up, the whole package, and inserted Islam in there as ethnography, and that should not be the approach. We again, I go back that we need to do our own homework. Yes, we benefit from Foucault, Derrida, and everything, decoloniality and all that, but we need to have our own position. And there are young scholars who are doing that. Some young scholars. There's a Facebook page I would just recommend, Decolonial Kirit Khana. You could go and join there, and you can see the interesting debate which young Muslims are having on that issue of decoloniality. I think these are all for the questions for the now. Thank you very much, Hakan.
Professor Yusuf, thank you so much. I think it was a great, fascinating presentation and also lovely discussions. Thank you so much. As I said, it has been an honor for us to present, to host you. As I said, it is recorded and I will upload it on our website, and I will share it through various channels, including Sociology of Islam email group. And because academics from other parts of the world also are interested, I'm sure they will listen to your recording. Thank you so much. Now,
thank you for inviting me. Yeah,
you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much again for acceptance and also for your presentation. Thank you. Now, Omar, second presentation will be made by Omar Juma. As Omar, Omar's topic is on political Islam through Muslim Brotherhood. Just let me briefly introduce Omar. Actually, Omar Mohamed obtained a master's degree in social sciences from University Science Malaysia. Currently, he is a PhD candidate at the Center for Islamic Studies and Civilization, Charles Sturt University. Native language is Arabic, and he knows English, French, Thai, and Malay. And he has several publications, and these publications, of course, are included on the website as well. All right, Omar, please go ahead. I am sorry we exceeded the time, but that is okay, no problem. I can add at the end of I can add some more time. No worries at all. Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, we cannot hear you. I think just let me check just a second. Just Omar.
Where is he? In Singapore or where? In Australia?
Now he's in Australia. He was in Thailand, and he studied in Malaysia. Maybe I don't know if he studied with you or not, but now he came to Australia with his PhD.
No, I studied with with Professor Siva Morgan Pandian in USM. I'm sure you hear about him. Prof. Imtiaz, thank you so much. I was really focusing on your speech. I'm hopefully that I can focus on mine now because I was really paying much attention. And yeah, it was very, very, very like fruitful and a very good and interesting presentation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So as Dr. Hakan said that my name is Omar and I'm going to do the proposal defense for my PhD, Political Islam through Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, thanks everyone. Everyone is listening here, and especially my supervisor, Professor Mohamed and my co-supervisor, Dr. Omar Ataya. Okay. So let me first do here the presentation. This one, yeah. All right. Okay, put this aside. So my current study. Our current study is currently talking about political Islam. Islamic scholars or political scholars aim to understand how political Islam is treated in our society, especially modern society. And they look at political Islam as an ideology that comes, for example, with the humanism and socialism. So how Muslims react to political Islam. So this is currently going on with Islamic scholars and political scholars as well. So the major test of political Islam is how it manifests when it is an actual political power. So when political Islam comes to power, how it's treated by society and how people react towards political Islam as an ideology. So I'm going to focus on that as well. And the most important thing is that I'm going to use Muslim Brotherhood as a case study because we believe that, or Islamic scholars believe that Muslim Brotherhood, I can say that established the modern political Islam because as we know that political Islam was found by Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, and as well as Jamal Ibn al-Afghani, but it was developed to modern political Islam by Muslim Brotherhood. So we are going to focus that on how Muslim Brotherhood used political Islam when they came to power in 2012. All right. Next one here. So background. So Muslim Brotherhood is a socio-political Islamic movement that was founded in 1928 by Hassan al-Banna. So Hassan al-Banna, he was Islamic, was a school teacher. He did not graduate from Al-Azhar University. And Muslim Brotherhood members are currently persecuted in Egypt and other countries as well since 1915.
Yes, so, Omar, we cannot hear you. I guess. Okay.
Well, we got him. Okay, now it's fine. Okay.
Yes, fine. Yes, fine.
To hear him actually, maybe.
Okay, so Muslim Brotherhood members, as I said, that they were persecuted in Egypt since 1915 high status. So not only in Egypt, but even in other countries, like for example, in Tunisia, Morocco, and in Saudi Arabia. But currently, Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Emirates as well. But despite that, Muslim Brotherhood, they continue to operate in many countries in the West. For example, that the main branch for the Muslim Brotherhood is located in London, in the UK. Well, what led the Muslim Brotherhood to come to power? We need to understand that there are these three factors: execution of leaders, incarceration, and political banning. Since the foundation of Muslim Brotherhood High 30, the movement has faced all these three factors. They have been executed, they have been incarcerated, and they faced political banning. So if we say that happened for more than 80 years until the January Revolution of 2011, but having that, when the revolution came, they toppled Hosni Mubarak, who stayed in power for 30 years, and he also, like, how to say that, he had also played the same rule as the previous rulers, and executed Muslim Brotherhood and incarcerated them and banned them from practicing politics. So Muslim Brotherhood, when they toppled Hosni Mubarak, they finally came to power. And before that, they were only played the role of being a political opponent. So when they came to power, they used political Islam as an ideology and for promoting the ideology to control our government. But when they came, Muslim Brotherhood in 2012, the Freedom of Justice Party linked to Muslim Brotherhood won the presidential election. They nominated Mohamed Morsi to run for presidential seat, and when he became a president after only 1 year, Morsi government was toppled in a military coup led by the Minister of Defense Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Not just that, Muslim Brotherhood, they demonstrated to stop the military coup, but they couldn't manage to do that, and that led to what we call Rab'a massacre, as you can see in the photo here. More than 5,000 or 4,000, sorry, of Muslim Brotherhood members were killed, murdered, and put in incarceration. Okay, my literature review, and I'm doing here like the subheadings. I'm going to do briefly for each one. So the significant literature on political Islam. We're focusing more here about political Islam worldwide. How political Islam is seen worldwide. How important is political Islam, or how is it introduced by Islamic scholars or political scholars as well. Political Islam in the Muslim world, I consider some cases, for example, in Malaysia, how political Islam is looked in Malaysia by PAS party, by Amana, and even in Bangladesh as well, how Jama'at al-Islamiyah seeing political Islam, and Indonesia as well, Nahdlatul Ulama, and how they present political Islam. Political Islam in Egypt, we focused here political Islam in Egypt in the history of political Islam since the foundation. I don't want to say the foundation, but I can say that since the emergence of modern political Islam by Muslim Brotherhood, many Islamic movements, they have been born from Muslim Brotherhood to produce another political Islamic ideology in Egypt. Then Muslim Brotherhood in politics. So there are two parts that we need to understand. Muslim Brotherhood before the January Revolution in 2011, and after that, because before that, Muslim Brotherhood, they were banned. They couldn't, I can say that, practicing political ideologies like freely. They couldn't do that. So I can say that they have been working under the table. But when they toppled Hosni Mubarak, when they came to power, they came like, okay, now we have the time to work, we have time to show our ideology. There was no finite, and they have got all the political emancipation. So when they used political Islam to come to power, they established the government. So they have got a lot of challenges from the previous regime as well. Political Islam as an ideology. This is the most important part of my research. Muslim Brotherhood in governments. How could you believe that Islam as an ideology can bring Muslims to politics? And how did you use political Islam to govern Egypt? And we know that Egypt has a lot of more than 60 million Christians in Egypt. We have a lot of other ideologies, like we have secularism, we have communism, and all of that. So how political Islam as an ideology can stand with those other movements? Well, in literature review, I'm going to highlight two important books here. Political Islam by Peter Mandeville. His book, he published his book in 2016, and he actually talked about most of Islamic movements worldwide. You can say that from Morocco to, I can't say to Japan, but we can say that to Indonesia, Malaysia. He mentioned most of Islamic movements, how they propagate the political ideology, and how political Islam is treated in each country. And then Khalil al-Anani as well. He has a very famous scholar in political Islam, and especially Muslim Brotherhood. I like his book because he actually looked at the Muslim Brotherhood, like inside the Muslim Brotherhood, he focused on identity. It's very, very important, because when he looked at the identity, he used this, what we call the resocialization process in sociology. he was like saying that how can a person, let's say that someone from Al Qaeda, for example, wants to join Muslim Brotherhood, how they like disown their previous belief to join Muslim Brotherhood, and how they will become treated inside Muslim Brotherhood. So he also used psychological perspectives as well. That book is very, very, very interesting for those who wants to understand more about Muslim Brotherhood. In our literature review, we saw that Islamic scholars or political scholars, they separated Islamic movements into these three categories. They have religious movement, tabligh jama'at, those who do not involve politics in their gathering and meetings and all of that, and socio-political movements like Muslim Brotherhood. And scholars believe that violent extremist movements are represented by ISIS, Taliban, Al Qaeda. But again, I have to mention that scholars also mention that Muslim Brotherhood is currently a terrorist movement in Egypt, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Well, what is political Islam? The definition of political Islam is very big, and we've got more than 20 definitions of political Islam in our literature review. But I'll start with Mandeville here. He says that political Islam as politics and Islam altogether is the involvement of Islamic teachings in the governmental system. While Cesare says that political Islam is better defined as political culture that cannot be read exclusively in light of the pre-modern Islamic tradition, because it is the result of the Islamic tradition's dual process of nationalization, reformation, and westernization. The last one here, Stepaniewska says that political Islam is a particular interpretation of Islam based on certain doctrines, beliefs, and values at the foundation of a political structure, including some general concepts from Islam history, such as Islamic State, Caliphate, and the Sharia to constitute the doctrines. So if all scholars have their own, they have different definition of political Islam, why can't we find one definition that we can agree and put, then we can work on our research? So we propose the following working definition. Political Islam is an ideology that proposes to govern the state through Islamic principle and legal framework to produce an Islamically moral society and practicing Muslims. Well, I have to stop here and highlight something very important. Political Islam is an ideology. So one of our research questions that will come later, saying that, like, do you think that Muslim Brotherhood leaders will evolve the ideology? Do they really think that they have to evolve the ideology? We assume that if Muslim Brotherhood believe that the political Islam is not an ideology or it's just a belief, that would take us into, how to say that, into another argument. Why? Because if it's a belief, B-L-I-E-F, it means that they cannot change it. So how is that? How is that possible? Let me take a case study that I mentioned before. China, for example, China and North Korea. We know that like communism is used in or implemented in China and North Korea. So currently, China has developed communism. We can see type of westernization in China. You can see McDonald's, you can see advertising, you can see all of that. But in North Korea, communism is a belief. You can't change it. People believe that. We believe in communism. So there is no any type of development of the ideology. So if Muslim Brotherhood, if they, let's say that they would believe that they are the Muslim, if they would believe that political Islam is a belief, then that will take us to another argument. Well, in the literature review, this based on a previous study, it says that, as we can see, this is the socialization process and recruitment process in Muslim Brotherhood. They start from here, socialization process. Then they start from lava, which means muhib. This is the first stage to become a member of Muslim Brotherhood. Then you move to the supporter stage, then affiliated stage, organizer stage, worker brother, then the last stage here where you fully become a member of Muslim Brotherhood. So if I'm going to collect my data like through Muslim Brotherhood leaders, I can't take my data from this whole in the early stage, larva stage. No, it's impossible. So what's the difference between each stage? Okay, there's one American scholar, his name is Eric Trager, I think. He said that in larva stage, you can only memorize a 2 surah of Quran, and then they can teach you some of hadith. Then they will see if you can memorize them, you'll move to other stage, which is supporter. At this stage, they will tell you, okay, this is Muslim Brotherhood. We are a religious movement. You have to know some like basic let's say basic concepts about the movement and about politics as well. When you become to affiliated, if you become an affiliated member, at this stage you can participate in the internal elections inside Muslim Brotherhood. So you are not a full member of Muslim Brotherhood. Even if you become an organizer, still you are not a full member of Muslim Brotherhood. But worker brother, at this stage, you become a full member. You can participate in internal or external elections in Muslim Brotherhood. And during all of this process, you must attend this usra where they evaluate your personal behaviors, where they evaluate your Islamic teachings. So this usra, that in Arabic like family in English, it means that you have to attend a weekly meeting with 4 members of Muslim Brotherhood, including one captain that we call captain or leader, who will teach you or who will become the Rabb of Usra, the father of the Usra, to see how you live or how would you discuss your issues within the Usra. Gap in knowledge. There's a lot of gap when we understand, if you want to understand political Islam through Muslim Brotherhood. For example, that political Islam is treated differently from country to another. So if you're going to look at political Islam in Egypt, it has been treated as an external ideology that was not accepted by Egyptians. That one scholars say that, okay. But at the same time, you find another scholar will say that no, political Islam was accepted by Egyptian society. That's why Muslim Brotherhood came to power. So there's a lot of like discrepancy between scholars to produce political Islam. And political Islam, for example, in Morocco now, not now, but 2 years back, it was Morocco was governed by an Islamic party that has an affiliation with Muslim Brotherhood. So they also use political Islam. But when we look, for example, in Egypt, how political Islam was treated, anyone has an affiliation with political Islam now, especially Muslim Brotherhood, would be incarcerated. So we need to ask this question: do Muslims need politics in Islam, or do they need Islam in politics? And based on that, it's unclear if the political framework of Muslim Brotherhood succeeded or not. Well, in the literature review, Muslim Brotherhood, they have been practicing politics for more than 90 years. So we could say that they have got the ample knowledge about politics or Egyptian politics. So why did they fail? What happened? You have been practicing policing that and assuming that, okay, we'll come to power, we are promising people that we will bring the Islamic teachings again, and we will do this development of society. This all based on political Islam. But what happened is different. They failed. They have a military coup within 1 year. And also no literature or research that involved with Muslim Brotherhood leadership. There's one journal article that it was conducted in the UK. They interviewed some Egyptians, and most of them, they were opponents of political Islam. They were like not even Islamists. They were against Muslim Brotherhood. So So, for example, that how can I understand political Islam through those who stand against political Islam? So that be quite biased, and that's why we are going to interview Muslim Brotherhood leaders to understand more about political Islam and the role of political Islam during Muslim Brotherhood government. So this is the research questions. To what extent, the main question is that to what extent has the Egyptian experience of Muslim Brotherhood in political office altered the core ideas, assumptions, and socio-political objectives of political Islam? So I really want to understand how Muslim Brotherhood was to power in the Egyptian politics after the January Revolution by using political Islam. So that could be in elections, political discourse. That could be in like let's say like meetings with other political rulers. That one of the questions, and also the principle of Islam. How did they use the principle of Islam, and what did promise Egyptians if they are going to implement the principle of Islam? Because we know that the motto of Muslim Brotherhood that is Allah is our destination and the Quran is our constitution. So if you assume that the Quran is your constitution, did you really promise Egyptians that you will implement the Islamic teachings or the principle of Islam? Also, what were the factors other than the military coup responsible for the collapse of Muslim Brotherhood's government? So if they will say that, okay, the political Islam failed because of the military coup, okay, perhaps there could be other factors, because military coup did not happen out of the blue, but there were a lot of abomination in the streets against Muslim Brotherhood. There were demonstrations and a lot of chaos, political chaos in Egypt because of that. So of course, we don't know the answer yet, but we will ask these questions to the leaders of Muslim Brotherhood. And last question is that has there been any changes in the conceptual thinking and practical implementation of political Islam? So this is what we are going to interview. Are they going to evolve the ideology or not? Basically, that. Are they going to change their way of thinking about political Islam or governing Egypt following the old school way, or if they have another technique? Well, hypothesis. The working hypothesis is we have two. Muslim Brotherhood leaders would claim that they failed due to a lack of experience in government, not due to unsuccessful application of Islam in politics. So they could stick to the ideology and say that no, we did not fail because of political Islam. Perhaps the previous regime had put us in tight spot, and that's why we failed. The Muslim Brotherhood leaders would not change their belief that Islam requires the establishment of Islamic State, but they would learn from their experience and power to change their approach to politics. Here, if they are not going to change, let's say, political Islam, how would they do anything just to stop the three factors I mentioned before in the slides number 3, execution and political banning and incarceration? If they are not going to change the ideology, not to develop political Islam as an ideology, so will they stop any of these factors they have been facing since the foundation of the movement in 1928 till now? All right, theoretical framework, social movement theory. I'm going to use this theory. Ibn Khalil al-Anani, the one I mentioned his book before, he used social movement theory when he talked about political Islam, because social movement theory will lead us to understand how such a religious movement, such as Muslim Brotherhood, could use political Islam as an ideology to convince people to follow them. So the best thing to understand that an ideology and people and society is to use social movement theory. And here in this figure, the first factor here is Muslim Brotherhood movements, how they use both political Islam and Muslim Brotherhood government to impact or to have an impact on Egyptians. Then, the most important part, religious movements socialize their members and promise them religious dominance, which is endorsed by God and Quran and Sunnah. If Muslim Brotherhood consider themselves that let's say that the chosen movement, how would they implement the Islamic teachings, the Quran and Sunnah in Egypt's society? Well, this theory shall fulfill the gap that through the research questions based on the literature review. Okay, methodology. We are going to interview 20 leaders of Muslim Brotherhood, but we have bifurcated this 20 leaders into two parts. 10 leaders who played political role in Moses' government, because we believe that those leaders have ample knowledge about political Islam in government. How did they use political Islam in office? How did they react towards like political incidents by using political Islam, the Islamic teachings, and all of that. At the same time, we need to look at the leaders in the educational department. How did they socialize Muslim Brotherhood members based on the political Islam? For example, is that, again, I have to mention these three factors. So in the past, if you would like to join Muslim Brotherhood, they will tell you that, okay, you could be executed, you could be like killed, you could be jailed, you could be you get this like deprivation of practicing politics. But when they came to power, how did they socialize their members? Okay, now Muslim Brotherhood came to power. We are going to implement our ideology, the teachings of Islam and all of that. So how the members have been socialized based on that. The study participants may be around the globe, but not limited to Egypt. Why? Because Muslim Brotherhood is currently considered a terrorist movement in Egypt. So I can't conduct any interview with Muslim Brotherhood leaders in Egypt, because that might have, you know, consequences, and I can't face the music, you know, go and interview them, and then, you know, you will be, you know, jailed or whatsoever. Last thing here, data analysis. I'll be using in Vivo for my collecting data. I will go through those 4 steps, make it like a thematic, how, like based on a story, how Muslim Brotherhood would answer the research questions. And yep, that's all for me, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Omar. I think a great presentation. I listened to you before during the HR Colloquium in Wagga Wagga campus. You're lovely, and I think your topic looks very clear to me. Yes, there are 2 reviewers, actually, reviewers of this PhD proposals, you know, the confirmation seminar. And please, Dr. Can Ali, Professor Can Ali, he's here. Just if you can provide some general comments. And of course, we will go over your detailed report later in a private panel. Please. Can Ali, yes, please, if you can, I think you are muted. All right, just a second, just a second. All right, just a second.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Hakan, and thank you, Omar. I'm really sorry. I have another meeting. I'm already 10 minutes late, so I'm just going to give you a quick response, a verbal one, and your principal supervisor, Mohamed, can give you more detailed supervision, feedback based on my evaluation. There are a few things I wanted to say. I think you need to clarify or identify what is the problem that you are investigating, and that is by looking at what concerns people in Egypt, and so your research question needs to ask, what is it exactly the problem that is worth social scientifically investigating? I think I think you've got the idea, but I think that needs to be refined so that the research question is very clear and easily understood. Noting that political Islam is a heterogeneous phenomenon, and you need to be very careful about talking about political Islam. And so the research question will be a very important way to negotiate into that very complex phenomenon. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was your methodology. Given the fact that political Islam rose during the Arab Spring, particularly in Egypt, on the backs of Muslim Brotherhood, which is one of the foundational movements of Islamic revivalism, I think there is a major problem in Egyptian society. And so it is very important for you to actually look at what others think about the failure of the Muslim Brotherhood-based political Islam in Egypt, led by Morsi, because whilst the senior members of Muslim Brotherhood have one perspective, or their perspective, you also need to actually get the perspective of others, such as ordinary Muslims in Egypt, and also Muslim organizations and other institutions. So I would recommend you to expand your data collection area beyond the senior managers or senior members to include ordinary members and Muslim organizations and institutions. Now, how many you will do that, you can determine that based on scientific formula. My last comment is to say this to you, that I find it concerning about the use of social movement theory to actually investigate and examine a phenomenon which is religious. And therefore you are looking at a religious movement and how a social movement theory works with that is something that you need to properly articulate, because social movement theory, especially with this resource mobilization approach, is more concerned with social issues, whilst political Islam is actually focused on this idea of the implementation of Sharia through the establishment of the Islamic State, the Caliphate. And so I would be very careful to use social movement theory, although some scholars in the past or researchers in the past have used that, but I will question the applicability of that theory to a phenomenon that is different, in other words, political, religious in nature. So those are a few of my comments, and I'm sure that Mohamed will offer you a more detailed comments that I have made to help. Now, don't take this as a criticism. I want you to take this as something of a feedback that will enhance your research. So
of course,
don't be dismayed with my with my scathing comments.
No, thank you so much, sir. No way. I want my thesis to become a good one, so that's why I have to, ask people to read it and give me feedback.
Remember, social movement theory is more interested in social aspects, whilst political Islam is more interested in religion per se. So you have to be very careful. Okay, I'm really sorry. I have to go. I'm 15 minutes late to my next.
That's okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, actually,
Not a problem.
for the great
Okay.
feedback.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Lucky I have to just walk to the next room, but thank you.
Great,
See you. Bye-bye.
great. Thank you so much for this actually very constructive feedback. Omar, you are at the beginning of your research. Of course, this is, I think very constructive feedback, because now you are at the beginning of the research. If actually when you complete it, maybe if any sociologist, like Dr. Can Ali, could provide such comment feedback, of course, you will consider with your supervisors. All right, thank you so much for joining today to this last research colloquium organized by Center for Islamic Studies and Civilization, Charles Sturt University. Professor Imtiyaz, do you want to say last words before finishing?
No, not last. I want to share a question with Omar.
Yes, sir.
Just very quickly, because we will finalize it. Yes, please.
This is a very relevant question for political Islam. I work on Islam and Buddhism, and I have not found an answer to this question. My Buddhist student, in Buddhism, they have a non-violence approach to politics. Though, like in Sri Lanka and Myanmar, they are engaging in what I call as non-violent extremism. All right, the monks don't do violence, but others do violence in the name of Buddhism. But the Buddhists asked me a question, and this is connected with what happened with the Ikhwan regime in Egypt, and Mubarak regime in Egypt. They killed thousands of people, right? Like you just mentioned, 5,000. So my question is, connect with what Jan Ali said, what is the limit of violence in political Islam?
Okay.
I want you to consider it.
Okay.
I want you to consider it, okay? This is the first one. And the second question would be that yesterday we had a class on Salafiyya, actually, and we were discussing even Jamaat Islami and Ikhwan al-Muslimun. They and some of my students are here. The Morsi government, when it came into power, they were spending their time on discussing the status of Sharia in the constitution, and they were not addressing the questions which are faced by the subaltern people, the subaltern, the poor of the poor. And Ikhwan al-Muslimun its appeal is only limited to the middle class, lower middle, and upper middle class, the literate class. It does not go down, neither does it go to the elite. So these are some questions I would like you to reflect in your research. Maybe they are relevant or not, but the most important question is, what is the limit of violence in political Islam? Thank you.
Professor Imtiyaz, thank you so much for this also great feedback. And Omar made the notes, of course, he will consider in his research. Thank you so much for joining today to this last colloquium, as I said, and thanks for registering. And of course, we had a great number of registration, 79, and these two sessions actually are recorded, and I will send the recorded colloquium recordings to you, to your email, and we will share it through our university research website as well. Thank you so much again. This is the end of the
Hakan, excuse me, Hakan, can you, Omar and Zulaiha, stay?
Yeah, we'll stay.
Of course, definitely. And yes, this is the end of the colloquium. You can disconnect from Zoom. Just only supervisors, Dr. Mohamed, Omar, and Zulaiha, if you leave behind and if you stay back, and we will continue just for the reports, for Omar's examiner report. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor.
See you. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Professor.
Nice to meet you, Imtiyaz. Thank you for
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.